We got a great one for you today. Cautionary songs. Now, a cautionary tale is more than just a story. It's a warning wrapped in a lesson. Today's songs spotlight the consequences of risky choices, showing exactly what can go wrong when someone ignores the red flags, turning life's hard lessons into unforgettable lyrics and melodies that truly serve as a brutal wake-up call. It's a tough thing to do. But coming up next, a song that is the measuring stick for every father in the world. I mean, if you can listen to this one and not feel like a total loser, you've probably done well as a parent. It's a song that was written by a legendary singer's wife, and he didn't give it much credence when she showed him the lyrics, but a short time later, when his wife found out he'd been cheating on her for years, he lost his marriage and his son for a time, and the song became a reality. Then he turned his life around and made sure the song didn't come true. Then there's a song that was covered by an all-time legend, and when the original artist heard this cover, he hated it. His song was far too personal for someone else to cover it. But then he saw the music video and he realized the song no longer belonged to him. These stories, plus some interviews, are coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you ever paid to see a G-rated movie, but then snuck into an R-rated movie, like Predator or Beverly Hills Cop, you'll dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Those are a couple that I snuck into, admittedly.
Go! Get to the chopper!
Make sure to subscribe below right now. Click the white bell and click the bell, or the notification bell, so you know when our stuff comes out. Also, check us out at professorofrock.com for even more content. You know, in popular music history, there are a bunch of songs that offer some pearls of wisdom presented in a catchy arrangement. Couple of quick 10-second examples. Holland Dozier Holland's You Can't Hurry Love, immortalized by the Supremes in 1966. Then in the 90s, Oasis advised us to move forward and don't look back in anger. In 1974, Mac Davis turned a phrase that band leader Doc Severinsen heard his doctor say into a #9 hit on the Billboard Hot 100. The lyrics of Mac's tune Stop and Smell the Roses remind us that while chasing success often means sacrificing family time and personal joys, it's just as important to pause and stop and smell the roses along the way.
Got to stop and smell the roses.
And there are songs that have a stern warning that were delivered with a wry, sardonic twist. Songs like Frank Zappa's Don't Eat the Yellow Snow.
Don't you eat that yellow snow. Watch out where the huskies go. And don't you eat that yellow snow.
But coming up, I've chosen 3 songs that hit the hardest for me because of their raw honesty and their emotional depth. These aren't just cautionary tales. They're deeply human stories full of pain and regret and truth. So coming in at number 3, it's one every expectant father should hear. And they should hear this before their first child is born. It's a brutal reminder of how social pressures can creep in and pull focus away from what truly matters in parenthood. I got Cats in the Cradle by the late Harry Chapin.
And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon.
In Harry's Cats in the Cradle, a father welcomes his newborn son into the world full of love, but always short on time. Caught up in the demands of work and responsibility, he keeps putting off precious moments, reassuring himself that there will always be time later on. Meanwhile, his son watches and admires and unknowingly takes notes, promising that one day he'll grow up to be just like his dad.
I'm gonna be like you, Dad. You know I'm gonna be like you.
Now, the lyrics of this song started as a poem written by Harry Chapin's wife, Sandra Sandy Gaston. She drew inspiration from the strained relationship between her first husband, a guy named James Cashmore, and his father, John, a Brooklyn politician. She was also influenced by a country song she once heard on the radio. Now, Harry later adapted the poem into a song and thought it wasn't originally about him, but it soon took on a deeply personal meaning.
He learned to walk while I was away, and he was talking for I knew it.
Reflecting on his own relationship with his son named Josh, he once admitted, "Frankly, this song scares me to death." Now, Sandra said, and I quote, "Cats in the Cradle was a combination of a couple of things. Whenever I was on a long drive, I would listen to country music because words would keep me awake more than just the music. And I heard a song. I can remember the story, but I don't really remember who sang it or what the title was. But an old couple was sitting at their breakfast table and looking out the window, and they saw the rusted swing in the sandbox. They were reminiscing about the good old days when all the children were around and then the grandchildren and how it all passed. And now it was all gone.
Coming home, Dad, I don't know when, but we'll get together then.
Sandra and Harry married in 1968 and they had 2 children, Jennifer and Joshua. When Joshua was born, Harry was struck by the meaning of his wife's poem and decided to turn it into a song. Sandra recalled, she said, we'd both check out each other's work, and then one day he came home and asked, what have you been up to? And I showed him Cats in the Cradle. And he said, well, that's interesting. Sometimes he'd pick up something and add music to it, but that poem, it didn't really grab him. Then after Josh was born, he picked it up again and put music to it.
My child arrived just the other day.
Harry would often joke that Cats in the Cradle was a song his wife had written because he wasn't around when their son Joshua was born. Sandra would later say, I always found that amusing. We learn life's lessons too late. We don't get all the wisdom before the fact, and we don't have a child and instantly just know everything. So I always thought it was interesting the way he told that story.
He came to the world in the usual way, but there were planes to catch.
Again, when she first showed it to him, he didn't give it much credence, even though it was a cautionary tale that would come back to haunt him. A short time after that, it would all come crashing down for Harry Chapin. He cheated on his wife for a long time, living the rock star life, and he even kept a little black book with all their numbers in it. Now, one day, his wife happened upon this by accident. She called Harry and told him it was all over. Shortly after that, she had a lawyer and had an injunction against Harry, and he was barred from the house. Now, he went into a deep depression. He had chosen his career and his affairs over his family.
College just the other day, so much like a man, I just had to say.
It was at that moment that he changed. He wouldn't become the deadbeat dad in the song. He vowed to turn his life around and choose his family, and he did. He got back together with Sandra, and he became the model father and husband, the opposite of the person in the song.
Oh, I said, not today, I got a lot to do. He said, that's okay.
Cats in the Cradle appeared on Harry Chapin's 4th studio album, Verities and Balderdash. That was released in '74. The single climbed to the top of the U.S. Billboard Hot 100 in December of that year. As Harry's only #1 hit, it became a signature song and a defining track in folk rock music. His recording of the song was nominated for the 1975 Grammy Award for Best Male Pop Vocal Performance, and it was later inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame in 2011. So fast forward to the afternoon of July 16, 1981, where Harry Chapin was making his way down the Long Island Expressway, headed to a free benefit concert at the Lakeside Theater in Eisenhower Park, East Meadow, New York. This concert was set for the evening, but Chapin's journey would take a tragic turn. At 12:27 p.m., something went terribly wrong. I guess witnesses reported seeing him put on his emergency flasher, slowing down to 15 miles per hour. His car weaved in and out of lanes, moving from the far left lane to the center, back to the left, and then again to the center. In that moment, a semi-trailer truck struck him from behind with a devastating force. The collision was brutal. It crushed the rear of Chapin's 1975 Volkswagen Rabbit, rupturing the fuel tank and sending the car skidding several hundred feet across the pavement. Passers-by rushed to the scene and managed to pull the unconscious Chapin from his engulfed vehicle. He was then quickly airlifted by helicopter to the medical center near there, but despite the efforts to save him, Harry Chapin was pronounced dead at 1:05 p.m. The cause? Fatal internal bleeding and a heart attack. The world had lost a beloved artist far too soon. It's interesting. I got an email when I did a piece on this several years ago, a little different take on it, from a guy whose father was the last one to see Harry Chapin. He's probably the last one to talk to him. He owned a music store, and Harry went in and bought some guitar strings for the show. And he remembers saying, "How you doing?" And he said, "I'm very, very tired." That came from one of our viewers. Cats in the Cradle is a song that my own father told me about when I was really young. He told me, bits and pieces of his own painful life experiences relating to this song. Never all at once, though. What I mean is, whenever we heard it, he would tell one part of a story and then a little more throughout the years. My dad's father was an alcoholic. He used to come home drunk and abuse whoever was around, whether my father or his 2 sisters or his mother. He once came home at night when my dad was in his pajamas, and he screamed at them to go out and pick some fresh vegetables from the garden. Now, this was in the winter. Snow was everywhere. The ground was hard. But he forced my dad to go out in the snow in his pajamas. And he was only like 6 years old. But other times were a lot worse. I guess one time after my dad's parents divorced, he was staying with his father at a remote cabin in Idaho. Now, my dad was only about 8 years old at this time, and he woke up in the middle of the night. He was throwing up, he had the flu, and he found a note saying his dad had just left. It was the last time my dad ever saw him until he got a call about 25 years later that they had found his dad dead from alcohol poisoning. I remember my dad saying that he hoped that it would be an open casket so that he would finally get to see what his father looked like since it had been so long. Sadly, it was a closed casket because it had taken them, over a week to find him after he had passed. My dad carried the pain of abandonment throughout his life. He never really knew what it was like to have an engaged father or a loving father for that matter. I talk about my dad all the time on here. We had our own struggles as father and son, when I grew up. But like I've told you, music was always our bond, the chain that linked us together. In the last 7 years or so before my dad passed away, we were really close. I think about this all the time, and I've thought about it a lot as I've been a dad myself. My dad could have followed in his own father's steps, horrible example. Or the deadbeat dad in the Cats in the Cradle song. He had every excuse to do so. But instead he used this cautionary tale and his own grave experience to break the vicious cycle. And he was a great father. Without a good role model, without a loving father, he became that for me and my other brothers and sisters. And that's made all the difference. Man, even though he's gone, he's with me in every interview I do and every story that I tell on here. Even now, I can still see him in my head, singing those last few lines of the song, "My boy was just like me. My boy was just like me." I can only hope.
Up the phone, it occurred to me, he'd grown up just like me.
Man, the truth is, Cats of the Cradle is the measuring stick for every father. If you can listen to that song and not feel like a total jerk, you've been successful.
My boy was just like me.
At number 2 on our cautionary tale subject is a song that's actually a remake, but the new interpretation is so emotionally riveting, it became the version that really gripped the world. Talking about Johnny Cash's interpretation of Trent Reznor's Hurt.
I hurt myself today.
Now, Hurt is a haunting reflection on consequence and regret, delivering a piercing message about the importance of making wise choices in your life. There's no greater torment than being trapped by a label, a pain, an illness, or even death, knowing all along that we'd one day wish we could undo the choices that led us to that point. Speaking about the deeply self-loathing nature of the downward spiral, Trent Reznor told USA Today, "I'm not proud to say I hate myself and I don't like what I am, but maybe there is real human communication that ends up positive, even though everything being said is negative."
Hurt myself today.
Rick Rubin, who produced Johnny Cash's iconic cover Hurt, was the driving force behind getting him to record it. While compiling songs for Cash to consider for America before the man comes around, Rick Rubin included Hurt, but it didn't immediately grab Johnny Cash's attention. Sensing its potential, Rubin urged him to give it another listen. Keep listening to it, but this time reading the lyrics as the song played out. Even then, Johnny Cash wasn't entirely convinced, but he ultimately trusted Rubin's judgment, and he decided to go with it.
To see if I still feel.
What captivated Rick Rubin about Trent Reznor's Hurt was its raw vulnerability. Something he knew would resonate deeply with the man in black, Johnny Cash, whose voice was steadily fading. Johnny needed material that could express that kind of pain. In the October 2004 issue of Vanity Fair, Rubin reflected on the song's haunting nature. He said, "It's a strange song. The opening line is, 'I hurt myself today.' And then the next line is, 'to see if I still feel.' So it's self-inflicted. It's such a strange thought to open a song with.
To see if I still feel.
So get this, Johnny Cash listened to Nine Inch Nails' original version of Hurt over 100 times before he stepped into the studio to record it. He later called it the best anti-drug song I've ever heard. Now, Trent Reznor didn't like the idea of Johnny Cash remaking Hurt. One of the main reasons is because he considered it to be the most personal song that he had ever written. But he was also leery of what he feared would be, kind of gimmicky. Now, keep in mind, those were the feelings that Trent had before he really heard Johnny's interpretation of his song and before he saw the incredible music video.
My sweetest friend.
Now, when he finally experienced it, he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Now, the way Trent told it, the first time Johnny's version was played for Trent, he gave it half-hearted attention at best. He didn't like it. It was the third time that cut him to the quick, and here's how it went down. A few weeks later, a CD arrived at the studio that Trent was working at that included Johnny's cover of Hurt. Now, Trent was in the middle of something, so he put it on, gave it a quick listen. It sounded really strange to him. He wasn't sure what he felt about it. He didn't like it. Hurt was a song that came straight from Trent's soul. So hearing Johnny Cash, this legendary, unmistakable voice singing it was kind of surreal. He was kind of getting used to it. It wasn't bad. In fact, okay, it was good. But it felt like watching his girlfriend sleep with someone else. That's what he said, something like that. Then another few weeks passed and a videotape showed up. Mark Romanek's video of Hurt.
I will let you down.
It was morning, and Trent again was in the studio in New Orleans. He popped the tape in, and wow. Tears welled up, followed by silence, then just goosebumps. It was what Trent described as an incredible wow moment.
My empire of dirt.
At that moment, I realized, this is what he said, I'd lost my girlfriend. That song wasn't mine anymore, and it all made sense. It really made me think about the power of music as an art form. I had written Hurt alone in my bedroom, in a desperate and isolated place, just trying to stay sane. And somehow, decades later, a musical icon from a completely different world took that song, reinterpreted it, and made it just as raw and pure, but in an entirely new way.
I wear this crown of thorns.
And when Johnny Cash passed away, the song's meaning shifted for Trent again. It somehow became even heavier, even more emotional. What started as an expression of his personal pain had transformed into something so much bigger, something eternal.
Beneath the stains of time.
On the Rick Rubin-produced recording, Hurt featured Mike Campbell on acoustic guitar and Ben Tench on piano, organ, and mellotron. Both longtime members of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, of course. Smokey Hormel also contributed electric guitar, adding to the song's ominous atmosphere. Now, the video for Hurt was so heartbreaking, with those images of Johnny on death's door, his management actually hesitated to release it. Even Johnny himself was unsure about it. According to Rick Rubin, it was his daughter Roseanne Cash who ultimately convinced him to let it go. Later that year, June Carter Cash passed away, making the video's haunting imagery even more poignant, if that were even possible.
My sweetest friend.
Man, I remember the first time I showed this to my son. He cried. He became a Johnny Cash fan. At the 2003 MTV Music Awards, this was nominated for 6 awards, ultimately winning Best Cinematography. With the video, Johnny Cash became the oldest artist ever nominated for an MTV VMA, back when they mattered. Even when Justin Timberlake won the main award, he admitted it belonged to Cash.
This is a travesty. I demand a recount.
The release of Johnny's version of Hurt and the album American Before the Man Comes Around was surrounded by irony. Not long before the release, the country music industry had pretty much disregarded Johnny Cash. Now suddenly, they seemed to rediscover and re-acknowledge his absolute genius as an artist. Not only was the Hurt video named Video of the Year by the Grammy Awards, it was also given the same honor at the Country Music Association, CMA Awards. We've got a whole story about that in a different episode. I'll link to it below.
goes away in the air.
The most poignant part of Trent Reznor's cautionary tale, which was so profoundly conveyed by both him and Johnny Cash, lies in the song's final verse. If I could start again, 1,000,000 miles away, I would keep myself. I would find a way.
Away.
By the way, these songs are not in order. They're just three different tells of caution that motivated change within all of us. But at number one, our last cautionary song is another tearjerker spawned by a very emotional event in the life of one Kenny Loggins. From Kenny's 7th studio album, Leap of Faith, it's The Real Thing.
Never compromise on, and that's a real thing you need in life.
Now, as Kenny disclosed in the liner notes of Leap of Faith, The Real Thing was initially meant to be a christening song for his daughter Isabella, who was originally named Amanda.
Amanda, I know what you're thinking.
But as life often takes unexpected turns, Kenny found himself divorcing his first wife, Eva. Amid the turbulence, he poured his emotions into the song, turning it into a heartfelt expression of his feelings during that very challenging time. Man, the conversation that I had with Kenny about The Real Thing was one of the most touching that I've ever had with an artist.
It's the only pro-divorce song out there as far as I know. Boy. So when my first marriage was breaking up, I don't know if this is true for everybody, but I had a freedom song for me. It was Lyle Lovett, If I Had a Boat. Do you know that one? Yeah. I don't know. If I had a go out on the ocean, and if I had a pony, I'd ride him on my boat. And we get all together and go out on the ocean.
Set me up on my pony, on my boat.
Great line in that song. History's masked man was smart. He got himself a Tonto, 'cause Tonto did the dirty work for free. But Tonto, he was smarter. And one day said, Kimosabe, kiss my ass, I bought a boat, I'm going out to sea. And if I had a boat, I'd go out on the ocean. And if I had a pony, I'd ride him on my boat. And we get all together and go out on the ocean. Set me up on my pony, on my boat.
Yeah.
So anyway, everybody's got a boat upon the ocean, but not everybody's. Is there someone there for me? I'm ready to believe. I did it for you and the boys, because love should teach you joy, and not the imitation that your mama and daddy tried to show you. I did it for you and for me, because I still believe there's only one thing you can never give up, ever compromise on, and that's the real thing you need. I don't know, it modulates or something. Oh, love.
Yeah. Tell us the story about writing that song. It's one of my favorite stories. I know it's emotional.
Yeah, no, I was writing a song for my daughter's christening, still married, and I'd promised that I would write a song for this ceremony. And I figured since no one would ever hear the song, I was just going to turn on my tape recorder. We had those back then. And sing whatever came to my mind, and just trust that that would be the right song for the ceremony. And started just pacing the room and singing just off the top of my head. And out came that melody, I did it for you and the boys, because love should teach you joy and not the imitation that your mommy and daddy tried to show you. And I stopped, and it knocked my wind out. I did not see that coming. That was not the appropriate song for that ceremony. And it scared the shit out of me, and I put it in a drawer and hid from it for a year, and until the appropriate ceremony showed up, which they called divorce. And then I went to Canada and I finished it with David Foster.
David Foster.
And I remember we were writing the verse and doing the chorus, and he turned to me and he said, "Dude, is this happening to you?" And I went, "No." That's how honest we are with each other when we're, you know, I wasn't ready to go there, but it was happening.
And that's the real thing you need in love.
The message of honesty and love and being true to yourself made The Real Thing a gift to his children and all of us.
It's your mama and daddy trying to show you.
It's something we need to apply in all aspects of our lives. Now, the legendary Paul Buckmaster, the late Paul Buckmaster, known for his work with icons like Elton John and David Bowie, crafted the string arrangement for The Real Thing, while David Foster played the delicate piano section.
I did it for you.
As a second single from Kenny's deeply personal Leap of Faith album, one of my favorite of all time, The Real Thing became a staple on adult contemporary radio, reaching number 5 on the charts. In Canada, it peaked at number 39, and although it didn't make the Billboard Hot 100 here, regardless of how it fared on the singles chart, The Real Thing is a favorite of many of Kenny's multitude of fans.
That's the real thing you need in love.
Man, that was a tough one, very emotional. Cautionary tells, what do you think? What are your favorite songs? What are your memories of these songs? And what are other cautionary tales should we cover on here? Cautionary songs. Songs with a lesson. And man, Cats in the Cradle, The Real Thing, Hurt. They don't get any more poignant than that. Let's have a great discussion below and celebrate these songs and talk. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.